Good morning, LinkedIn. Happy Monday morning to you. My name is Claire Henson Bowen, and I am the founder of Bespoke Wellbeing, which is a occupational health physiotherapy company. And last week, I did a post around long-term absence. So, putting out the sort of statement and quote that if your staff member is off work for more than 6 months, the chances of them actually returning to work at that stage after that point reduces to 50%. And I wanted to come on this morning and explain and try and talk through why that happens. So the longer that somebody is off for, why does the chances of them returning to work deplete? Why does that go down? And when I'm talking to managers and I'm discussing this with them, I actually like to flip it round. So I want you to have a think about, what does work give you, or what does work give somebody? So when someone has a job and they're going to work, or they're working from home, but they have that employment, whatever kind of contract that is, what does that give somebody? So I've noted a few things down. You've probably got loads of others that you can think of, but it gives that person a purpose. So when you have a job to do, whether it's voluntary, whether it's self-employed, employed, whatever it is, you have this sense of purpose. And with that, if it's not a voluntary basis, you have the financial side as well. You get paid for the work that you do. So you have some financial security, which for many reduces stress. So financial pressures, financial stress. Being in a team, you have a social connection with people. So you connected to people, you're hopefully respected, you are part of something, and you are talking to people and you have that connection. Hopefully you're having fun with it. Being involved in a job, you have a sense of distraction. So if anything's kind of going on, you tend to forget about it, don't you, until you sort of finish that meeting or finish the end of the day. So there's an element of distraction when you're working. You definitely have a routine, because you usually have start and a finish time. So you get up in the morning, you have your shower, you have your breakfast, you go to work, and then you come back, maybe have a gym after work, you have your dinner, you have a routine. You go to bed at this time because you know you've got to be up in the morning. So it gives you a really nice routine as well. It hopefully gets you active. So maybe you're commuting, so you're walking, you cycle to work, you've got to go to meetings, you've maybe got more of a physical job, a nursing role, construction. So you're active, so you're physically active, and getting maybe sweaty, higher heart rate, breathlessness. So you're kind of getting that involved in your work as well. There's mental stimulation. I really like Sudoku, so but it makes your brain work. There's that mental stimulation. You've got to think a lot of the time, problem solve. You hopefully will build relationships with the people around you, and ultimately you should have good self-worth and self-belief, because you're working and you've got something, and you're respected, and that's how kind of work makes you feel. I know not all of these apply to everybody, but I'm just giving you a snapshot of what work can give someone. So then I want you to flip this round now and imagine that you're injured. I'm a physiotherapist, so I'm going to say you've hurt your back, you work in construction, you've hurt your back, and you are feeling unable to work because you're in pain, you can't move, you can't bend down and put your socks on, let alone lift anything. So you're feeling unwell, you can't work. And then it goes on and it goes on, and it's weeks and it's months, and then you hit 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And I want you to think about all those things I just described around what work gives you and how you feel at work, how many feel. And then imagine that it's split around. You don't really have that anymore. So if we just put aside the fact that you're in pain, you've got swelling, stiffness, you can't do the things at home that you'd like to do because they're kind of there. You've hurt your back. But if we look at the things that work can give people, suddenly you've got this lack of routine. You're off work, you can't work, you've got back pain. So in the morning, there's nothing really to get up for. So you might get up earlier, you might get up later. It doesn't really matter. You can do something else. Maybe you haven't slept well because you've had back pain. Maybe you've been on some pain medication, so you're all over the place. And then you're tired, so you might have a snooze midday because you haven't got to be anywhere. And then you might stay up late in the evening, or maybe go to bed earlier. So it kind of affects the routine of what you're doing. And changes to sleep is really common, particularly in sort of musculoskeletal health. So people who are in pain, they don't sleep as well, and they really disturb sleep, they end up napping in the day. So you get this change to the sleep cycle as well. And there's this element of isolation. We hear this a lot where we get referrals to our service where someone's been off for quite a long time and there's just been a real lack of communication between the employer and the staff member. And the employer doesn't want to, invade them and, contact them too much. But then equally, the employees feeling really left behind, feeling really isolated. There's been loads of changes at work. They have no idea what's happening. So they get this isolation. Maybe they're not going out as much. They're off sick, so they don't feel they can do things. They've got to be at home because they're sick. And they get this isolation that goes on. And we talked about being active with work. So whether you're a sedentary worker or not, you usually be commuting, but if you're more a physical worker, then you've got the activity. So when you're then not working, there's this element of deactivity, and we get deconditioning where things do get stiff and they do get weaker because you're not using your muscles as much as you perhaps were before. Financial security may be going down. A lot of employers will have their sickness absence policies and payment terms with their sickness absence pay. So maybe you only get so much of your employer funding your full pay or half pay. But after a while, many companies will start reducing. Some companies will go straight to statutory sick pay, which can be obviously quite a lot lower than your normal pay. So people have the stress of the financial worries that might be continuing on. And we talked about purpose. So if you're not at work, you may feel a bit of a less of, your purpose isn't there. What is your self-worth and that belief, your self-belief? And people get this fear avoidance of going back to work. They can build it up in their mind that I just cannot, I'm not going to go back to work. And it builds and it builds and it builds. And what happens is when you're feeling this way is that all these barriers start to creep in. So they could be, some more occupational barriers, they could be physical barriers, psychological, emotional. So these things creep in. You can spot them early sometimes in some areas, but over time, these barriers increase. And so what happens then when you get someone who's been off for 6 months and we say the chance of this person returning is reducing at this point, is because of all these barriers, excuse me, that have built up over this period. So importantly, what can you do? Like why am I talking about this and what can we do? Well, first things first, prevention. We always talk about prevention. We want to try and prevent injury and prevent people going off sick, try and support them before that happens. But if someone is unable to work, because we all get injured at times, so sometimes you can't work, it's about early intervention. So it's about getting in quick, getting the right advice, getting the reassurance, getting a plan in place to help that person to return to work as quickly and as is safe to do so. So it's well documented that people don't have to be 100% to go back to work. That's quite a myth. It's still out there. I don't know how it's still out there. I thought we sort of, blew it all down. But they don't need to be 100%. Yes, they need to be able to fulfill some of their role, but there are adjustments and recommendations that can be made to help support that person get back to part of their role and have a plan in place to start building them back up into their normal hours, normal duties. Because if we wait until someone is 100% fit, you could be edging them towards 4 to 6 months, and we're not serving them right. We need to encourage them to keep the routine, to keep the social connection, to have that self-worth and that purpose, and try and remain in work, because work is good for your health. It will become part of the recovery process and it helps the recovery process. So that early intervention is really, really key, whether that is occupational health referral or physiotherapy referral. So something that is getting in nice and quick and supporting that staff member and picking up those barriers that might already be there. You may we sometimes will see somebody at a week or two post injury, they're off sick and they've already got a belief that I just can't go back to work, or there's something that's already built up in their mind that they can't return to work. So we need to understand, we need to be respectful, and we need to listen, and we need to understand what these things are. So aside from the early intervention, if you've got someone who's already been off for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, it is definitely, if you have not referred them to occupational health, I cannot stress enough, it's important as they start to veer towards 6 months, something has to be done, because you have to offer them that support and try and understand, how do we move forwards? What are the barriers here? And it could be, of course, that there's an issue around pain and the injury and it's not been managed in the right way. We need to be looking at some other kind of intervention, but something needs to happen, and that communication needs to be there to try and support and move away way forwards for this person. And I think as a manager, we need to have that communication. So, having those transparent conversations and, acknowledging what it is like to be off work for this amount of time. It is difficult, and trying to understand and to really listen to your staff member when they are talking to you, because they will provide you so much information about how they're feeling, what their beliefs are about return to work, and it will start giving you some answers of what maybe could be done to help bring that person back to work. And importantly, if you have referred to occupational health, you should get a useful report that can looking and understand these barriers and how you work with them to build it into the return to work plan. So if, for example, I don't know, let's pick one of them, say it's around the isolation or the fear of return, a slower phased return to work, maybe making them supernumerary to start with, giving them a buddy, or something, altering things to just ease them back in, might alleviate some of their anxiety and help them return to work. We work with a lot of patients around the routine and the sleep health, because I personally feel if someone has that all out of sync and then we just go, right, let's get you back to work, it often falls down. It often doesn't work. So we need to prepare, have some preparation. If they've been off for 6 months, they need to be back into a better sleep cycle, better routine, and then we start looking at the phased return to work adjustments. So I hope that's been helpful. It's a really big passion of mine, persistent and chronic conditions. So I just want to come on and talk to you about that. If you have any questions, do drop them in the comments below and I'll come back later and chat them through with you. See you later, guys.